The issue that you're running into right now that makes the replacing Biden conversations so unfathomable, cancerous. Three groups of people right now talking about replacing Biden. Glad Candace Owens is making the full switch to whatever the call.
Science has become a faith.
Science has nothing to do with atheism. These two things are wholly and completely unrelated. I don't know why you even use them, implying ontologically. I can't imagine how broad your categories of things have to be for atheism and science to be overlapping, but okay.
And before American history, of course, America's a very young country. In fact, when you study, you will learn that the Dark Ages, the notorious Dark Ages that they tell you about, those weren't dark at all. They were just Christian. Trust us when we tell you that we made it to the moon. Anyways.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Reading through some of the responses to this, I wonder how many people just don't understand like anything about our government or like how anything is structured. Like there are like multiple people in these replies like quoting the Constitution at me. Blatantly wrong. Read the next sentence of the Constitution. The President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of. He thinks conviction here means criminal conviction. I think there were like 4 or 5 different people. So both of Donald Trump's impeachments were political and had nothing to do with crimes? Yes, that's how impeachment works. Trump wasn't charged or convicted with any crimes for his impeachments to go through because it's not a criminal proceeding. Except that the only way to hold them criminally liable is to impeach and convict is stated in the... It doesn't say that, though. Not sure why you're playing weird semantic games with impeachment when it was intended exactly for situations like this. It's not intended for criminal prosecution. I wonder, oh, this guy, read the Constitution. Holy shit. There were like 3 people that I was about to, like I was quote tweeting and I started writing. I was like, this is a waste of my time. Okay. Tim Pool's tweet is the most telling. Yeah, and I don't even necessarily hold like normal people responsible maybe, but the commentators. The president could assassinate a political rival and is immune to criminal proceedings until convicted by the Senate after impeachment. That's not anywhere in the Constitution. It was an argument that Trump's defense tried to float. Roberts shot it down. Nobody seriously believes this. If Congress agrees the assassination was not a high crime or misdemeanor, why would there be a secondary criminal charge? What? Impeachment has nothing to do with if you think something was criminal. What does secondary mean here? None of this sentence makes sense. What do you think? Like it's just a total misunderstanding of what all these things are. Like I don't even know what the comparison would be. Like, you can't possibly be the Speaker of the House if you haven't gone to trade school. Otherwise, how would you not know, or how would you know how to use like a hammer to gavel and like call for order? It's just like, it's like not even, it's not even wrong. It's so out there in terms of how do you even evaluate this statement? I don't know. Okay. What's your advice for me who got sucked into right-wing conspiracy theories at an early age and sees everything through a lens/algorithm of NWO, Jews, and far more? If you're there now and you're asking me for advice, it seems like you're already probably not there anymore, no? Your Rittenhouse takes and Alex Jones debate helped massively. You're an inspiration for me and how not all left-wingers are libtards. However, I still believe those conspiracy theories. Okay. Can I ask what piece of evidence you would need to change your mind that Biden would be the best nomination for the Democrats? I mean, if his polling numbers slip hard enough, then you swap him out. If you were to replace Biden with either Kamala, Newsom, Bernie, Pete, who would you pick? Between those 4, probably Kamala. Maybe Newsom. It would be either Newsom or Kamala. Why not Pete? He's gay. Why not Bernie? He's way too far to the left. Half the Democratic Party wouldn't vote. The issue that you're running into right now that makes the replacing Biden conversations so unfathomable cancerous is you have like 3 groups of people right now talking about replacing Biden. On the right, you've got conservatives. When conservatives talk about the mental faculty of Biden, they don't care. Literally, none of this makes a difference to them whatsoever. They will point to whatever possible thing they can about Biden to say why he's not fit to run for president. But it's not like if you put somebody more fit, they would have a better opinion of him. Trump could be showing literally every single sign or symptom that Biden is, and these people would still vote for Trump. They would want Trump to marry their children. They would want every possible thing that Trump could do. So on the conservative side, you have to ignore every single thing a conservative says in terms of criticizing your candidate, because their candidates are literally beyond reproach. Trump can do anything. Trump could literally ask for immunity from the Supreme Court to murder political opponents and have that be beyond judicial review, and they would still support it wholeheartedly without a second thought. Okay, so you have to ignore every single thing a conservative says. Then at least online, you've got this opinion over here to the left from people who are like, oh no, we should replace Biden because of his mental faculty. They don't care about his mental faculty either. They just want a socialist. They want somebody really, really, really far left. And now that they see Biden might not have the popular support to be elected, this is like their opportunity to be like, oh my God, like now we can finally get in Bernie Sanders or some other like far left commie socialist dude or whatever who would, destroy our country in 50 million different ways. So these people are all like, it's irrelevant what they say. It doesn't matter. If you were to swap them out, you'd be like, okay, yeah, I don't think Biden can do it anymore. Let's swap in, somebody like Pete or somebody like this. But they're like, wait, what? Excuse me. What about this other candidate, Marxist-Leninism? I think that this guy would actually be a way better. Like, why can't we finally do it? Like so this is the retarded point. There is a group of people in the middle who think that Biden might not have the popularity to run because of the perception of the cognitive decline or whatever. And I think that this is worth considering. But then the problem is once you break down these people, now you have so this is just that middle chunk that's remaining. So on the left, you have what feels like the majority of people right now. These are people who think that you can just look at a current poll, see how popular a candidate is, and go, oh my God, if this guy runs, it's going to be so easy. It's going to be so good. He's polling better than Biden here. Oh my God, it's so easy and good, and this guy will run. These people are also retarded and should be ignored. Then you have the enlightened group, okay? I am a part of this group. This is the super enlightened people. And these are people who are saying, if you want to run another candidate besides Biden, you could do it, but there are a ton of risks. You are moving onto totally uncharted territory. If Biden's poll numbers slip enough, it should be heavily considered. Probably has to be done in a somewhat timely manner. We can't do it like a week before. It's not out of the question, but you have to understand that the decision is incredibly complicated. All these people over here on this left block right here are comprised of the exact same people who are saying things like Cuomo is going to be like the best candidate, the shining star of the Democrat. Oh shit, he's gone. DeSantis is going to threaten Trump and finally shake it up. He's even got gubernatorial experience. Oh, he's gone. It's the same people who think that like if you look at a candidate at some particular point in time before he's been on the presidential stage, before he's been tested, before he's been mined for all of his shit in his past, they're like, oh yeah, of course this guy. Yeah, of course you think that. But this is why these conversations are AIDS right now. It's just not worth engaging in. This is why I would lean towards, if you want to throw somebody out, Kamala and Newsom maybe, because those two at least have been somewhat vetted in terms of like a public official standpoint, but that's why you'd pick Kamala? Yeah, unfortunately. But Kamala is black and female, so she's got two huge status things working against her. For Pete, I don't know. No offense, Democrats, but we have a lot of black people that vote in our primaries. We have a lot of Midwestern working, whatever people that vote in our, Midwestern? I don't think that's true. There are demographics of people that are traditional Democratic voters. I don't know if they would vote for a gay candidate. I don't know. What about changing the VP to boost Biden's popularity? I don't know if that would affect it much, and that would be pretty yikes. Why is being black an issue when Obama was super successful? Actually, that is true, and Hillary won a fuck ton of votes as well. Maybe the black and woman thing, maybe neither of those matter that much, or maybe it's the combination of the two. I'm sorry, my black queens. Maybe actually wouldn't matter that much. I don't know. Having Newsom in, I don't know. It's so, all of it is so multivariate that it's hard to say like what the things would look like. But I can just imagine like, here's Newsom and here's what America will look like. and it's every single underpass in LA. It's every single homeless person attack. It's sanctuary city, open borders in Californian cities. It's exploding budgets everywhere. It's the highest tax rates of I think for state taxes of any state in the country. It's like exploding housing costs. I think LA, am I making this up? Is LA, which cities had residents leaving? I feel like I read at some point that LA was the only major city in the country where people were actually, where the population was reducing. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so it's Los Angeles, then San Francisco, and then Miami area, South Florida, Long Island, New York. What about Gretchen Whitmer, Michigan Democrat, moderate? Maybe. I don't know. Why is Kamala so unpopular? I keep hearing this, but I have no idea why. Her stage presence, it feels very performative and condescending and fake. I don't know why. Fake and performative. I don't know why. I don't like the way she speaks. I shouldn't say I don't like it. I think people don't like the way that she speaks. I can see it though. Do not come. Don't come. Don't come. Kamala and Newsom couldn't. They're both from California. Yeah, I've heard that. I didn't even know that was a rule. Apparently, if you can't have the vice president come from the same state that your president comes from. Is that actually a rule, or is that just like good practice?
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our
Replaying this 24/7 during No Nut November.
laws and secure our border. There are legal methods by which migration can and should occur.
Get a 940 and Jimmy Carter replaces Biden as the nominee. All right. Let's wait. Okay. If I get a 940, Biden stays. Okay. Oh no. Boy, you may have doomed us all.
Not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving!
Wasn't Jimmy Carter on his deathbed like a year ago? How is he still alive? Bro, I don't know. Explain, can no branch of government limit the power and scope of the president? Not even the president? No. For power and scope? That's stuff that I believe is supposed to come from the Constitution. The Constitution can be changed, though. We just need everybody to do it. At Destiny, it's always nice for people like you to advocate for a candidate when you suffer no consequences when he loses. In fact, you will benefit from it. No offense, my duder, but I'm rich and I live in America. I'll benefit no matter who the I'm. It really doesn't matter. What do you mean? I don't think rich people are affected that much one way or another. Are you riding with Biden now? I would support anybody that the Democrat Party puts up. I've already said that before. I would vote for a urn with ashes in it for Donald Trump as president. If the Democratic Party puts somebody else up, I would support them, obviously. It's more risky, I think, than most people give it credit for being. Do you not get the feeling that the country in general wants a younger candidate? Dems will vote for any Dem, Republicans will vote for any Republican, but the more center-leaning people go for the younger candidate. Where's the evidence of that? If people wanted a younger candidate, we had so many to choose from. We had a primary with like 11 people. No? Why didn't we vote for the younger person there? Because the primary electorate is different than the general electorate? Is it really that different? I don't believe you, actually. Because if that was true, then your primaries would never turn out candidates that win generals. America has memed itself into forgetting the primary exists. We always say the Dems choose to run a candidate, but we always forget that we are the Dems who chose. True, people don't like any responsibility. You blame the media, you blame the party, you blame anything else. But at the end of the day, this is who the primary system turned out for both sides. So these are the people that you have to vote on. Destiny, we voted for Biden because people correctly knew he was a solid choice to stop Trump, and he did. Now he's underwater and failing to basically advocate for his presidency. None of the other candidates could have possibly beaten Trump? If the only candidate that could have beaten Trump was an old guy, then I guess we like old guys then. If that's... Every moderate dropped out in 2020 for a Biden cabinet position. He was polling like garbage until then. Nice. What fantasy world do you live in, my dude? Let me come join you. What's the worst versus best thing you say about Donald Trump? Worst thing about Donald Trump is that he's essentially a fascist in every single measurable characteristic. The best thing you can say about him is that he's ineffectual as a leader, so he can't get most of his agenda done. Saying he's a fascist is bad optics, though. I feel like we need a better... I'm not playing for optics. The guy asked me a question what the best and worst thing was about him. Not every single thing I do in my life is about optics. Jesus.
So are you saying that he has a same-sex partner? He? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Are you kidding? Yeah, he's married to him, yeah. We need to find out if that's serious. Well, then I don't want anybody like that in the White House. So can I have my card back? I don't know. You signed it. We could go ask. I never knew that.
Well, so the whole point of it is, though, he's a human being, right?
Like, I am not memeing here. I am not memeing. I am not memeing. It's mean and it's below the belt, but I sincerely think that there should be more attention given in debates and in Democratic messaging on the fact that Trump would be the first single president. I think people should play that out more. I think voters care about shit like that. I think it's worth mentioning. Unless he gets married before the races. When did they get divorced? They're not divorced yet, but I think they're pretty clearly separated. Apparently Pacman made a video on it, but like she wasn't even with him at the debate, and now people are like finding them like apart from each other a ton. Oh, and she wasn't at some of his court stuff
Where
either.
is Melania Trump? Dozens of you have emailed me, and you've said, David, the story isn't so much that Melania is missing, it's that no one's talking about the fact that Melania is missing. And I would even add to that, we have a candidate that...
James Buchanan was never married and became president. Nobody knows who James Buchanan is. I don't know who James Buchanan is. Nobody cares, okay? Doesn't even sound like a real president. Doesn't sound like a founding father. Doesn't sound like somebody that did anything important. Nobody gives a okay? Who the is that? Who cares?
Is running on stated values that align with so-called pro-family conservatives. And aside from the affairs and the cheating, all these different things, the porn star hush money and all of it, what about the fact that he's just by himself and doesn't appear to actually be in a real relationship with his wife anymore? They don't care because they are only stated values. They aren't real values or sincerely held when they are inconvenient. So let's talk about a couple parts of this. Yes, Melania Trump is nowhere to be found. Interesting article from the Sydney Morning Herald with Melania missing her role in the post-conviction.
They found her. Jesus Christ.
Trump campaign is more uncertain. And Farrah Thomason asks, how much is she willing to put up for a man who betrayed and humiliated her? And now that Trump is officially a felon, will she appear by his side as he campaigns? Well, the answer seems pretty clear. No. Melania Trump has not been appearing by Trump's side this entire campaign. And the details are not totally public. And to be honest, I don't really care what's going on with their relationship. You know, they sleep in separate rooms. They don't talk to each other. I don't really care about it except for as it relates to the supposed principles that having a...
Surprised it doesn't got that meme. This guy is like triggered more of the world. Even I know this guy's a legend. This guy is like, looks kind of nerdy. I don't actually even know what he does or why he's famous, but apparently he just gets the baddest bitches and he takes them from like not even like beyond S tier men. He like just captures these women and nobody knows how. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on. My God. He is crazy. Somebody comes up to you and tells you this guy will date the most beautiful women in the world and he will steal them from the wealthiest men in history. He dated Carly, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Aquilino? Don't know who that is. Kazi David, don't know who that is. Ariana Grande, he dumped her, by the way. Kate Beckinsale. Margaret Qualley. Oh, she's... I feel like she's in movies and stuff, right? Is she an actress? I feel like I've seen her before. Kaya Gerber? Don't know who the fuck that is. Larry David's daughter? Is that really? Olivia O'Brien. Phoebe Denevor. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Okay. Kim Kardashian. I've heard that name before, by the way. Taken from Kanye. Emily Ratajkowski. Chase Sweet Wonders. Don't know who that is. Madeline Klein. God damn. Anyway.
Wife by your side represent when you were running as a Republican. And it's not new. If we go back to 2016, the event...
Right, his fits in those pictures. Oh yeah, true. There's a fashion stream now. Is this a NASA just a sticker that's just thrown on? He gets a 10 in every picture. My God. An actual fashion icon. Yes.
Evangelicals initially saw Trump for what he was, which is, you know, a serial philanderer, pro-choice, pro-gay rights Democrat, quite frankly. Initially, that Ted Cruz contingent, and Ted Cruz saw Trump for what he was. But Trump lied to them about everything. He said, you know, when I was 68, I became against abortion, and I just don't know about this LGBT stuff necessarily. And all the stuff you hear about me with cheating and all this stuff, it's all lies and fake news and whatever. And they accepted it. They either accepted it because they believed it, or they accepted it because they had no choice, because Ted Cruz clearly wasn't going to win. Marco Rubio clearly wasn't going to be the nominee. So they just accepted the entire thing. And of course, since then, we found out that in absolutely every way...
Wait.
My wife is out here f***ing a white boy with a 10-inch and you won't help me? My wife is out here f***ing a white boy with a 10-inch and you telling me that's your friend, but you're supposed to be culture?
Were these from leaked text messages that this came from? This whole dude, yeah, is yikes. Also, I'm glad Candace Owens is making the full switch to whatever the fuck you would call what she's doing now.
In many ways, science has become a faith. It's interesting because you have so many people that consider themselves to be atheists, and they say, well, I'm an atheist because I'm rational. And I'm rational because I'm able to look at this, I'm able to study this, and I'm able to discern.
Just as a heads up, science has nothing to do with atheism. These two things are wholly and completely unrelated. I don't know why you even use them, implying ontologically. I can't imagine how broad your categories of things have to be for atheism and science to be overlapping, but okay.
That this, therefore, is true. And the more that I think about that, I'm starting to recognize that in many ways, science has contributed to what I am terming a Christ conspiracy. It is the ability to convince people that faith is stupid. Oh my God, how could you believe in God? But science is definitely real. Yeah, those people don't recognize that science is now their religion. And that religion comes with sacraments. Just think back to COVID. People were lecturing us, the same thing, positions of authority, the doctors, the experts, the historians. This is how it's going to mutate if you don't do this. People were then walking around on 6-foot distancing pads. People were not seeing their family members because they were trusting the science and the experts and the people in the media that were creating another mass psychosis. Creating a mass psychosis that made people believe that they should just line up and that they should get vaccines. And when you think about...
What does any of that even have to do with science? The funny thing is there's actually a word that she could use if she wasn't just a grifting, like, clueless fuck. There is actually a word you could use. Does anybody know it, actually, if she wanted to be critical of this? Oh, yeah, oh, good job. Look at my fucking retard philosophy nerd chat. When people do elevate science and they try to make it answer questions that it's not really equipped to answer, if she was smart, maybe she does bring it up in this video. There's a concept in philosophy called scientism, which is basically taking science, which, and it's, okay, hold on. I feel like if one were to describe what science is like, it's like an analytical process to discover the world, share your discoveries with other people, and then kind of like validate or verify those discoveries, like in the broadest of senses, maybe. But scientism is when you start saying like, oh, well, actually, I applied the scientific process to God, and actually I found out that God doesn't exist because of blah, 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 blah. And it's like when people can actually get into this weird mind or like, oh, well, actually, scientifically, if we measure the human brain, morality is objectively true because it's scientific. And it's like, okay. If you really wanted to be critical of people that were abusing science or like expanding it past things that science could really deal with, then maybe you could use this term. Somebody said the tweet mentioned scientism. The Dark Ages were enlightened. The Enlightenment was a dark age. Candace Owens breaks down Western civilization's gradual shift towards scientism. Oh, he does use this here. And breaks down Western civilization's gradual... Oh, wait. And the way secular reasoning is wielded to police historical and political narratives.
About that, and you start studying history in the way that I had been studying history, you realize that lies like this...
You ever notice that when people say they like study history, they don't ever really speak about it? Have I... Benny Moore, well, no, fuck. I can only name people that agree with me. Yeah, I don't know. Especially now that I do. Whenever I said this before I didn't know anything about history, because the limited reading that I would do would show me that, oh, everything you're saying is wrong. Basically, every single time somebody says study history or learn history or look at history, they don't know any of it. They never do. My God, I can't think of a single lefty that's ever told me that. I don't think conservatives even pretend to be historically rooted anymore. Like, when everyone's like, oh, history, like, okay, which history, what book, what author do you recommend? Where do I start? Like, they're just like, start with the Bible. That's probably what she would say.
Studying history in the way that I had been studying history, you realize that lies like this have been told.
Like, give some examples. Like, you could ground it out in examples so well, and it would push what you're saying so much better. It would support your argument so much better if you could just like, oh, like in this and that and that and that.
It's as far back as I can look in American history.
Yeah, what Defty just said, if you actually know history, you would just work the examples into the conversation. If you pretend to know history, you say things like, if you studied history, yeah. I wish I could make people understand this more. Credentials should demonstrate themselves. They should be self-evident. Like, I've never in my life seen an intelligent person weaponize their credentials, because the credentials are a byproduct of their knowledge, and they'll just know the things, right? Like, if I would have an argument with a historian, they're not going to just say like, oh, well, I've written books on this, I'm a historian. They're going to say like, oh, well, what about XYZ, ABC, blah, 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 blah. They're like, oh, shit. Yeah, okay.
And before American history, of course, America's a very young country. In fact, when you study, you will learn that the Dark Ages, the notorious Dark Ages that they tell you about, those weren't dark at all. They were just Christian.
What?
They were ages of great Christian discovery. You can learn about that by reading an author named Rodney Stark.
Oh, she does recommend one author. Thank you. Share a couple things that you learned from him.
And then you learn about the Enlightenment. Well, let me tell you something.
Oh, no. That's another thing. When somebody, there's stage 2 of this pervertry, okay? You tell people to read history, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine, whatever. Don't bring anything up. You don't give any examples. What about, like, can you tell us what to read? And they'll be like, okay, well, actually, you should read this guy. Okay, why? So give me something from him. What did you learn from him, right? Give an idea. Give something. Incorporate what you've learned into your presentation.
It was not enlightened at all. It birthed the ideas that led to virtually every ill that we are combating today in society. Marxism, communism, humanism, the philosophies that have led to death and destruction everywhere. And that all came because people said, hey, don't believe in God, believe in mankind. You are individually enlightened. Believe in the books. Trust the textbooks. Trust us when we tell you that this definitely took place millions and billions of years ago. Trust us when we tell you that we made it to the moon. Anyways.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Anyway.
I'm sorry, what?
Because people said, hey, don't believe in God, believe in mankind. You are individually enlightened. Believe in the books. Trust the textbooks. Trust us when we tell you that this definitely took place millions and billions of years ago. Trust us when we tell you that we made it to the moon. Constantly believe and put faith in humans. We are the experts now. You are the experts now. Yeah, that's what I see everywhere. I see that they don't want you to believe in your soul. They want you to believe only in your mind, want you to believe only in rationality. And then, of course, they're curating that rationality. They're conducting experiments to see how they can get you to believe in anything, how they can get you to not even believe your own eyes, not even to trust your own gut, because there's an expert somewhere or there's a historian somewhere that will tell you otherwise. And that's all I'm going to say about that topic.
Why? What's the difference on history and journalism except from time? And since we can't agree about journalism, why is history right? Because there are people that say it's right, just like people say we went to the moon. The positive arguments to the constructive stuff, like I've said this before, is like making me hate people so much more. Okay, what is it about Christians? Because I don't think Jews do this. Jews value education. Okay, like if you are a Christian, okay, and if you have a mind, all right, like God created man separate from the animals to rule over the animals. God gave us the faculty to consider things that an animal never could, okay? He literally gave us domain over the entire fucking planet. If you're Christian, all right, science is one of the ways that humans, okay, created in the image and likeness of God, endowed with an intelligence, not seen anywhere else on the planet, has the ability to explore the things put before us by God in order to better our lives, right? I don't understand how you can be Christian and then look at one of the best faculties that man has been gifted with, if you're a Christian, as a gift from God, and then say like, oh, actually, we need to ignore all of that. It's like just such a retarded view of the world, of your religion, of science. It's like it's the worst combination of everything. One of my favorite arguments, I don't know how popular this is in Jewish communities or not. One of my favorite arguments that I heard from a Jew in Israel, because I brought up, because the Eruv shit and the Shabbat elevator and all of that stuff, all of that was just very, very, very funny to me. And one of the differences I made was I feel like as Christians, we're constantly looking at, you know, like the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. And it feels like when you Jews are like making up these crazy rules, it feels like you guys are looking at the letter of the law and then seeing how you can get around it, like all the crazy loopholes you guys have. And one of the responses I got from a Jewish person was, excuse me, God is perfect and God created man with rationality. If God writes a rule and it can be bent in a particular way, who are you to assume that God didn't mean it as such? It's not a loophole. It literally is as written. This is the rule. God knows that we can read and he knows that we have logic. So if he writes a thing in a particular way and you can have an elevator that goes up and down without requiring manual input, God didn't want that. He would have written that into the rule. I was like, okay, that's fair. Yeah, I guess that's fair. Yeah. Well, okay. That was actually I don't know if I've ever said this. That was the strongest argument that I heard in Israel for why like the weird quote unquote loopholes exist. And why it's not a loophole. God knows you can read. That's just as written. Yeah. I'm like, okay. You are a little wrong about the Jewish love for science and education. In New Jersey and New York, Jewish schools have some of the lowest test scores. If I start Googling this, I'm going to end up on the Nazi list. If I were to look up like Nobel Prize winners, I'm pretty sure Jews traditionally have a huge value in religion. There might be some Jews around the country that are dumb or that don't value education or whatever, but I'm pretty sure that Jews, like as a culture, have a huge value that they place on education. Did I say education or religion? I might have said religion, education, but
it's hard to find the opposite of their stated Christian values, stated being the key word, than Donald Trump. And now that Melania Trump is completely missing, all of a sudden, remember the concerns about, Tim Scott, he's been a bachelor his whole life, and we think maybe he's even gay. Oh my goodness. And he's really going to be not super viable to Republicans unless he puts a woman by his side. And eventually Tim Scott introduced us to his supposed girlfriend and whatever. But they're completely ignoring the fact that Melania Trump is missing. Now, as far as the behind the scenes reports are that she's renegotiated a prenup multiple times and that she wants out, but she's agreed for some amount of money to at least stay, quote, with Trump through the campaign. They don't seem to see each other. They don't seem to have any relationship, whatever. So I couldn't care less about Melania being missing. At the end of the day, it's about Trump's policies and Trump's campaign, but it is just yet another reminder about how brazenly and cynically these Republicans will abandon what they claim to hold dear when it's inconvenient. And right now, what would be inconvenient would be saying, hey, you know what? All the stuff we've been saying for 30 years, 50 years, I don't know how long matters to us about a candidate. It doesn't really matter if the opponent is a Democrat, if the opponent is Hillary Clinton, if the opponent is Barack Obama, if the opponent is Joe Biden. So we certainly...
Do you think how science and faith can stay as one if you see faith more as a personal and science as a more outward view? Quite rare that this isn't seen as such in the sciences. The thing is that religious faith can answer questions that science can never begin to touch. Science can never give you answers about aught. Science can't tell you how we should treat another person. Science can't tell you to live for something greater than yourself. Science can only inform your knowledge about these things, and then you make decisions on them based on your personal, I guess, like your ethical beliefs, right? Your whatever moral system you have, whatever meta-ethical beliefs you have, however you determine goodness. Science can never inform ethics. It can only give you information to make decisions that, come from your ethics. Like, for instance, ethically, we might say that suffering is wrong. And scientifically, we might be able to investigate, well, are people in comas suffering? Oh, okay, so then maybe we should kill them. But the ought comes from the faith. The description comes from the science. If you're Christian and you truly believe in a Christian world that was created by God, well, then God has placed all these things in front of you and before you to explore and investigate. And we have brains to do that. There's the joke, I've told this joke a million times, but I think it's a really good example of how you're supposed to live life as a Christian. And there's a flood. A guy sees a couple driving by in a car and they say, hey, come with us. There's a flood. And the guy says, no, God's going to come save me. The waters begin to rise. He's sitting in the upper floor, his whole basement and bottom floor are flooded. A couple come by in a canoe and they say, hop in, we're going to save you. And he says, no, God's going to protect me. And then, eventually the water's up to his roof and he's standing on the roof. A helicopter comes by, they throw it on a ladder and they're like, hey, get on. We're here to save you. And he says, no, God's going to save me. And then the waters rise, the guy gets swept away, drowns, and he's standing before Peter at the pearly gates, and Peter says he's been faithful his whole life, he's going to let him in, and the guy says before he goes in, he's like, hold on, one question. I placed my faith in God and I was killed for it anyway. What happened? And then Peter says to him, he says, God sent you, he sent you a car, a canoe, and a helicopter, and you ignored all three. What more did you want him to do? And it's like, the idea that God can't, if you are Christian, you believe in God, you believe the fact that can't manifest in some material reality is just strange. That's so stupid. I don't think there has to be an inconsistency in your belief in a higher power that informs your ethics and gives you a broader view of purpose in the world. That doesn't have to conflict with scientific discovery or process, I think. But I don't know. I saw this picture recently. I don't know where it came from, but Christ bros, it's over. An atheist building a raft, a believer praying in God. Amazing. God answered the believer's prayers by sending him an atheist to build a boat. The Lord works in mysterious ways. This is actually a meme in theist servers. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Suspected that. Melania's absence with absolutely no concern from the MAGA people is just another confirmation. It is time to start thinking like voters and to make sure that kids understand the importance of voting, how it works, registering, ballot initiatives, because so many kids just have no idea. That's why I wrote the new children's book, Think Like a Voter. I can think of no better time and no more important group of folks to try to reach. The book is now available at davidpakman.com/book, where, by the way, you can get the first 2 books in the series as well. Think Like a Detective and Think Like a Scientist. Really important stuff. Donate them to local libraries, classrooms, read them with the kids. davidpakman.com/book.
Wow, Pac-Man poisoning our children. Do you remember when Xander Hall wanted to debate Lauren about the book that she was making? What was it called? I think it was called the ABCs of Morality or something. And Xander Hall wanted to debate her on why this book was horrible, but it was before the book actually came out, so he had no fucking idea what was in it. Oh no. You probably addressed this, but do you think Candace really believes the shit she peddles? No, actually, I do think Candace Owens is a grifter. I don't think that she believes... I don't think she believes most of what she says. She's way too into the crazy shit. God, what a great fucking picture. Absolutely no one. Candace. I consider myself a moderate. Do you think if Trump dropped out and was replaced by Nikki Haley, would Republicans do better or worse? I think Republicans would do significantly worse. Trump is like a god emperor in the Republican Party right now. You couldn't swap him out with anybody. Maybe you could with like his son. But what do you think post-Trump America looks like if he wins and doesn't take over the country during his presidency? I have no clue. I truly have no idea. Do you trust Trump or Biden more to drive Nathan to school? I have no fucking idea. I haven't seen how either of them drive. Isn't Biden like a fan of cars and stuff? Does Trump even drive himself? He probably gets driven everywhere. Who do you think is the strongest candidate to take on Trump if Biden drops out? I have no idea. Probably Newsom or Harris. Maybe.
Flag for today's race, Dale Earnhardt Jr. But this is truly an historic first. A sitting United States president pacing the field for the great American race. He said he wanted to do a lap. He's going to do it.
Well, he is the president. He has that right. And I just can't imagine as a driver, as a competitor, the magnitude of this. This only builds up what is the great American race and one of the biggest races in the world to put that much pressure on you.
Oh, wait, they're just like driving the presidential motorcade? Presidents and former ones are not allowed to drive themselves ever on public roads. Is that true? Well, also, this isn't a public road, though. Oh, really? Then explain this. Jackson Hinkle holds a UN press briefing sponsored by the Permanent Mission of the Russian Federation to spew Russian propaganda about his trip to the occupied areas. Why hasn't this guy had his U.S. citizenship revoked yet? I feel like when you're taking jobs like this, I feel like you should just lose it, no? Oh, Jesus. They start speaking at 1:24:24.
Conflict can find ourselves in a full-fledged conflict already. This has had a huge impact on the lives of tens of thousands of people on both sides of the blue line, of civilians. So we're very worried. Our UNIFIL colleagues.
There should be political will to, let's say, reopen Rafah border crossings.
2 months ago, and
I don't know who the people are beforehand. I'm not
we
sure.
are
it's
against,
also in Gaza.
we are against.
Continues in the Security Council, and today we are holding another press conference.
I believe that tariffs are a good tool to use against states that are unwilling to negotiate on critical issues. I understand the risk of inflating personnel, but sometimes if we lower taxes at the same time, it may offset the possible increase in goods, while also being able to be aggressive with the strongest economy in foreign affairs issues. I don't know if tariffs are generally a good pressure point against somebody. I don't think it generally works. I feel like historically tariffs just generally don't work that well.
There's 3 American speakers, and I would call them public diplomats, who just keep...
People of the Donbass knew a war was coming in 2014. Locals recounted their fear of a war that would split the society. People were disoriented as they recounted. One thing they are not is separatists. They never indicated such a thing. The people of the Donbass want to live in peace and to have their rights respected. When I asked them if they ever wanted to be part of Ukraine again, every single person I spoke to emphatically said no. It is clear that the people of Lugansk have spoken. Any further peace agreement must begin from that point. Thank you.
Thanks, Erwin.
Thank you, Chris. And now, last but not the least, Jackson, please, you have the floor.
Greetings, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here today.
You have to have a cost-competitive base of supply in your country to offset the loss of foreign supply / increase in price. Yeah, but the problem is we don't invest in that much in the United States. And I don't know if we want to invest in that much in the United States. The United States does value-added stuff on goods and services that are just way, way, way more sophisticated than that. Why would we want to go back to manufacturing widgets when we can make like entire machines built out of widgets instead? I just don't think it's a good utilization of our workforce.
I want to share my experiences from my recent trip to the newly liberated territories of the Russian Federation in the Donbass. My journey took me to Mariupol, Tokmak, Berdyansk, Melitopol, and the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant over my 7-day trip, providing me with firsthand insights that starkly contradicts the lies and the narratives that have been propagated by the mainstream media and the Western political elite here. The following 3 points that I have laid out here are based on my observations, and they reveal a very different reality to what is promoted here in the West. Number 1, Ukraine is...
Is this the guy you refused to shake hands with years ago? Yeah, who was ultra ass pained at me for that. But I knew he was a fucking piece of shit, and that's why I didn't do it. And my call was correct. He is a piece of shit.
Not seeking an end to this conflict, but is instead trying to escalate it in an unthinkably dangerous manner. Number 2, the people of the Donbass do not want to remain under Ukrainian control, but instead hold a great admiration for the Russian Federation and for President.
Why would the UN even invite him to speak? My guess is if you go to any of these UN buildings, there's probably like hundreds of offices where tons of people are making tons of speeches and tons of presentations at all points in time. Like this whole room looks like it can hold like 50 people. So I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on in these like UN facilities like constantly. So
Putin. Number 3.
Also, yeah, I don't think the UN necessarily invited him. He's like part of this like little Russian team.
Ukraine is not defeating Russia, but is instead using its Western support to carry out horrifying acts of terrorism against the people of the Donbass that they claim they want to save. So first, let's talk about Mariupol. It was the first place I went. During the hour-long drive into Mariupol, which we made very late in the night, I saw over 1,000 construction vehicles on the highway into the city. And that's not me being hyperbolic, it's true. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Construction teams are working diligently to rebuild.
Think he does this all for the money, or does he really care about it? Probably like 80% for the money, 20% fuck USA, but...
Not just the areas that have been destroyed by the war, but the areas that have been neglected for years and years and years by previous Ukrainian governments. In Mariupol itself, in the city, the work of these construction teams was all the more evident. There are new schools, beautiful parks, gyms, theaters, stores, hotels, and thousands of homes that have been given free to the victims of the conflict in Mariupol and for the surrounding areas. Residents express their gratitude for a government that is...
How does a white boy that had everything handed to him by his parents turn out to be like, fuck America? Maybe his parents have Russian connections. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if he was like groomed for this for several years, just based on how his talking points and everything have evolved over time. But I don't know what his like family background is. It would be interesting to know that. I just haven't dug into it.
It's proactive and committed to responding to their needs. Mariupol residents also proudly shared with me the remarkable efficiency of these construction crews. I talked to one little girl, 14 years old, at a park
that his parents hate him, so.
Park that I visited in Mariupol, and she told me that the construction teams that Russia sends in can build 2 blocks of infrastructure within 1 to 2 weeks. And I told her how amazing that was, because in America it takes years to get a permit to build at least 1 road. But that was the truth. That's what was really going on, and it was incredible. The massive reconstruction effort essentially shows a nation that is actually committed to rebuilding and supporting its people, which is something that we have long abandoned in this country with our government. Next was my visit to Tokmak. This was located about 15 kilometers from the front line, and this was a very stark revelation for me. Contrary to the claims that Ukraine seeks to save the people of the Donbass from Russian invaders, the truth was far different. The truth was that I witnessed a horrifying campaign of terror.
Do you wholeheartedly believe he's an actual Russian asset? Isn't it just as likely he's audience captured? No. I wholeheartedly believe he is a Russian asset, in that he gets paid probably from Russian sources, and he gets like marching orders or like talking points or directed to like review material by Russian-based sources. Absolutely, yes. What's your evidence for believing that other than the fact that he parrots talking points? Tons of collaboration and coordination with Russian state media. So stuff like RT, trips where he's along with like actual Russians, like going to tour stuff. The fact that his girlfriend for a while was some like Russian model. Knowing a lot of other conservatives and then getting a little peek behind the scenes and seeing how much like collaboration and conversation goes on between conservatives in media, alternative media, at least today, with I don't want to say Russian assets, with Russians, I guess, over like potential things to talk about, media appearances to make. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that I think Russia probably has a decent foothold in a lot of like Ian Miles Chong, almost positive. Jackson Hinkle is obvious. Yeah, but I think there's a higher amount of coordination there than I think people realize. But I don't know who would even be able to dig into that or what that would look like. Destiny, do you consider the middle class poor in finance just because you're rich? Why should we be ostracized for wanting lower taxes like the Trump cuts gave? I don't understand I don't know how those two sentences connected. Do you consider the middle class poor in finance just because you're rich? Do you mean poor as in they don't have much money? Or do you mean poor as in they're bad at financial management? And then
I'm going to catch you later.
Okay, have fun, bye. And then why should we be ostracized for wanting lower taxes like the Trump cuts gave? If you want lower taxes, it's not necessarily the worst. It's just a lot of you don't understand. I don't think those tax cuts were affecting you guys that much. I'd have to go back and look. Like the changes made for some of the high income. Didn't Trump roll back some of the high income capital gain stuff? But that didn't kick in until over like $400,000 of investment income. I'd have to see let's just look it up. Trump tax cuts bill. It's out of this world that the talent of a podcast gets us in the weeds with AV shit. I already have the background from streaming, from knowing everything, and at this point, like, I've already built the whole studio audio video chain, so I know most of it now. It's just learning how to make it perfect. But I mean, it's close. There have been significant improvements, so we're close. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Place your order. July 7th or July 5th and July 7th. I guess just July 7th. Any reason why you don't want to delay the video to sync up with the audio delay? Well, at that point, I would have to delay all 3 cameras worth of video. And then I would have to delay the video coming from the TV. And then I would have to delay the microphones. And then I would have to delay those sets of things. Fuck all that noise. Okay. The law retained the 7 individual income tax brackets. The top rate fell from 39.6% to 37%. The 33% dropped to 32%, the 28% to 24%, the 25% to 22%, and the 15% to 12%. U.S. federal tax brackets. Dumb question. Why not just use headphones in the studio? I don't think Dan wants to. I don't know if I want to. It's nicer just not to have to. Okay, so last night audio. Thanks. I'll check this out. Let's see. If you make $150,000 gross, is there a way that I can look up? It's been so long since I've done my own personal taxes. Is your gross income with after deductions, is that your AGI? Adjusted gross income. This is your income minus your deductions, right? Adjusted gross income, also known as AGI, is defined as total income minus deductions or adjustments. Okay. What is the average AGI versus gross? Is there a way I can find this? So, like, let's say the average, for the average person who gets 150,000 a year, what is their AGI? Is there a way to find that? Is that like, is there anybody that records this anywhere? This is from 2023, this website. For the U.S. as a whole, the average adjusted gross income reported on federal income tax returns filed in 2021 increased to $76,000. So in 2021, it was about, we'll say, so during Trump's presidency, we'll say it was about 75K as your average AGI. So if your taxable income is 75K, AGI is not factoring in credits yet, right? 2%. So your tax bracket would have fallen from 25% to 22%. So if you were making $75,000, times, it's a, from 22 to 25 is a 3% difference, 3-point difference. You would have saved $100 there. And then from 15 to 12, or did I say 100? I'm sorry, $900. Did I just, I don't even know what the fuck I just said. I need to write these down. We'll say 908 here. And then from, what are you even trying to compute here? I'm just curious, if your AGI was 75K, let's assume no credits. I'm just curious what the, if a 75K was the median AGI, I'm just curious how much you would have saved on your taxes after the Trump tax cuts. I'm just curious. This is for personal income, yeah. So assuming you have, okay, I'm sorry, I'll walk through my calculations. If you have a $75,000 AGI, adjusted gross income, and your tax rate for your taxable income from 44K to 95K is 22%. It fell from 25% to 22%. So that means we're taking 3% of 75K minus 44.7K. That comes to $908, okay? Then we need to look at your income from 45K to 11K. So 44,726 minus 11,001 is 33,000, or 34,000. So this tax bracket was reduced from to 12%, from 15%. So another 3-point difference. So times 0.03 would be $1,100. And then the bottom tax rate was still 10%. So that stayed the same. Okay, so if you made, on average, and the average was 75K, then the Trump taxes, taxable income is not AGI. I'm just going by this. I understand that we can start throwing in deductions and everything too, but I'm not looking for. I wasn't even going to start. We can do that too if you want, I guess. Do we want to do that? I think Didn't Trump increase the standard deduction? Didn't he double it? For tax year 24, the standard deduction for single filers is 14.6 thousand. Standard deduction in 2020 or in 2019, what was it? 12,000? 30 rows. These are for marrieds, head of household. Okay, unmarried individuals. So it went up to about $6,000. I'm not factoring this yet. Fuck that. I don't need to calculate out everybody. Unless there's another website that's already done this for me. Then show me, okay? Okay. Just going by AGI before deductions, okay? Before we worry about factoring anything in, we'll say that trying to see what else in here would affect poors, the medians, the middle classes. Didn't they get rid of the SALT deductions? State and local tax. The new law capped the deduction for state and local tax at $10,000. This cap didn't exist before, right? If you take the standard deduction, could you also do the SALT deductions? Can you take SALT deductions and standard deduction at same time? You have to itemize to claim the SALT deduction. Okay, so that's not, okay. So then, okay. If you made 75K, we'll say median income, 75K, individual earner. You cannot take any deductions with the standard deduction. I thought that if you took the standard deduction, I thought there were one or two weird ones that you could take. I thought. Okay, sorry. Anyway, if you made 75K, you saved about $1,900, right? We'll say this. It might be a little bit more, it might be a little bit less, depending upon depending upon a couple other peculiarities, but we'll just say that. I think the big issue with the Trump tax cuts is that where did we go? Fuck, did I? Here. Top tax bracket kicks in at 578K. Fuck me. This, do I? Okay. I have to write all this out if I want to calculate this accurately. Do we want to do this right now? Okay, hold on. I'm going to pull chat. Otherwise, we'll just go read this shit. We can do this. The link you just opened works. I don't know if I trust these calculators. We can check. Okay, we'll look at Jason, single with 2 kids. Amber, single with no kids. Fuck it. Tax Foundation. I don't know how they're doing all of their calculations. TCJA expires, tax increase. Okay, so this is saying on $85,000. Is this $85,000 gross? These taxpayers take the standard deduction and had $5,500 of pre-tax 401k contributions. 85. So I think this is probably 85K gross. these guys were saving about $1,600. See more detail on the bottom. This is about, we'll say, 1.95%. These guys are 2 million. And these guys are saving about 1.2%. Am I doing this correct? I am doing this correct, right? I think I am. Oh, I'm so sorry. Percent change in take-home pay. It says it right here. Okay, cash income, ordinary income, AGI, taxable income, which is your AGI minus your personal exemptions and the standard or itemized deductions. Okay, and then income tax after credits applied. Your total payroll taxes, which are unchanged. Total tax liability is higher here. Trump didn't change any of the major tax credits, did he? Was it just the bracket shifting? And this is your average affected tax rate. Or your, I'm sorry, your average effective tax rate difference is right here. Oh yeah, that's what I am calculating here. Yeah, it's basically this. Didn't Trump also remove the individual mandate? I think they killed the mandate on the ACA a while ago. Yeah. What did we start this conversation off with? The guy in chat asked something about how. Something about, should I vote for this to decrease my tax liability or something? Wait, what was it? What the fuck was the question that got us down this road? I don't remember what we started calculating this for. Trump tax cuts. I think the issue is that for the Trump tax cuts, one of the biggest issues on a fiscal point is that the tax cuts happened and they were not paired with spending cuts, so you're doing a bunch of deficit spending. And then the second issue was that the tax cuts just seemed like across the board, they seemed like really generous towards really high income earners. That like there was a lot more money being saved before. I guess if you're a lower income earner, you were also saving money, and you were people when those tax cuts happened. I'm trying to remember if that was in the middle of a tax year. I think people got back like bigger checks, but the overall amount of money you saved, while helpful for probably helpful if you're in this like median or lower bracket, it was a lot to larger income people too. Probably an unnecessary amount, and it wasn't paired with any spending cuts. So you end up in this world where you have where you're doing huge deficit spending. At Destiny, why you dislike poor people, and why wouldn't you vote for Trump if you want more money? Oh, shit, fuck, sorry, my bad. I remember why we're doing this. Okay, okay, it was two things on the back of that first point. So if there are entitlement programs, or like, no, I don't think entitlements is correct. I think entitlements is things like Social Security and Medicare. Entitlement spending. Let me make sure real quick on that. Also, entitlement spending is mandatory spending, is government spending on certain programs that are required by law. Ignoring things like, if you ignore things like your payroll taxes, I think what those go to, because those are Medicare and Social Security, that the like total amount of money that really wealthy taxpayers are saving is money that's effectively being removed from any type of government spending, and that the little bit of money that might be being saved by somebody saving money on their taxes, if they're a lower income earner who already I don't think pays net very much in tax at all, I think, the savings there is probably not worth it. That was the grant. I took a long time to get around to that. Sorry. Because but then I guess you'd also look at the number of taxpayers in each category as well. But for, obviously these are much, much, much higher taxpayers, more exclusive. But for the 85,000 married with 2 kids who are saving maybe $1,600 on their taxes here, the $2 million people are saving, they're removing $24,000 from a potential government budget if you're spending in a balanced manner, basically. A $200,000 people are removing 7.5K or 7.4K from a government budget. Essentially the issue is that, while poor people might be saving money on their taxes, I don't know if that money being removed, I guess it depends on if you think government spending is good at all or not, that money being removed from wealthier taxpayers is going to probably have a worse downstream effect on any poor person that's relying on any sort of government assistance, essentially. Jesus. Okay. What is popularism? The U.S. has unpopularism. Popularism is basically rallying behind individuals who think they want to fight the system. That's like the very, very short of it. When people say percentage of Americans that pay no income tax, U.S. households pay no income tax 2022 by income level total about 59.9%. What is this? What is the income of a person who pays no individual income tax? And is this because they get it all back in the form of the basically child tax credit and the earned income tax credit? Or because I see James here makes $30,000 a year. So his AGI is 27.4, taxable income is 12K. Income after income tax, this is tax liability, is 1.2K. And then he pays payroll. What is, that counts old people and young people who just don't work. Wait, is that true? U.S. households that paid no income tax in 2022. Wait, do you pay income tax on Social Security? Federal income tax? Do you pay income tax on Social Security? You pay federal income tax on your benefits if your combined income, 50% of your benefits amount plus any other earned income exceeds $25,000 a year. Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is dumb, right? They should change maybe, or... Slept through, but does this explain why Trump was so popular on the economy that even poorer people saw a direct pay increase from Trump? That was part of it. When you do tax cuts, which Trump did, that's an immediate thing that you see on your paychecks. No, on your tax refunds. That was stuff that people were talking about. Was it 2018 when the Trump tax cuts happened? People see this immediately. It's 2017. Maybe it was 2018 when you started to see it, but... Paychecks too, I expect, because the withholdings should have been adjusted quickly. Yeah, possibly. I don't know what the timetable is for the IRS adjusting shit like that. I don't mean this as a gotcha, but I thought you said that deficit spending was fine. Deficit spending is fine, but it's important to, when we're enacting fiscal policy, it's important to know like where some of our benefits are coming from. So, for instance, let's say that I cut all income tax in the United States to 1%. Okay, for a while, the economy is going to explode. Okay, people are going to have way more money. People are going to be spending way more money. Everything is going to be going amazingly. Now, you might look at that and you might go, holy shit. Like, wait, why the fuck do we pay taxes at all? If we cut income tax to 1%, there's so much more money flowing through the economy. This is like amazing, okay? But what's actually happening there is not that it's not that people are just spending more and it's amazing. What's happening is that the people are spending more and the government is spending a fuck ton of money as well. And it's running up a debt. You're basically injecting a whole bunch of money into the economy for free. So whenever you decrease the tax receipts to the government, but you maintain the spending, all you're doing is injecting more money into the economy. So arguably, instead of Trump tax cuts, let's just say that we did a government spending increase without pairing that with a tax increase, you might see like a similar effect. Now it's going to depend on where the government spends, how the government spends, whatever, right? But that's why I'm saying you have to be careful. If you start to pair, when you start doing tax cuts without pairing it with spending cuts, or when you start doing a spending increase without pairing it with a tax increase, all you're doing is you're injecting more money into the economy. So of course you would expect to see everything increase. It must. You just have to be careful though, because people don't understand where the increase is coming from, so they're likely to just attribute it to the thing that they like. But a limit of this would be, for instance, a conservative would criticize a Democrat, rightly so. A conservative would say, you can't just infinitely spend with the government because you're going to cause inflation. You can't just print money and spend it. That's crazy. You can't just have all these stimulus checks going out, these stimulus programs. You're just spending more money and devaluing the dollar. That's true. When a conservative criticizes stimulus, what the conservative is saying in a fiscal sense is you are increasing the spending of the government without offsetting it with either a tax increase or another spending decrease to keep the net deficits the same, right? However, like this is so here is our deficit spending, or I'm sorry, here's our tax receipts, and then here is our deficit spending, right? Let's say that I do stimulus, okay? Well, okay, when we do stimulus, we're injecting more money into the economy because we're not matching it, right? But let's say instead of stimulus, okay, let's say we don't do stimulus. Let's say we do tax cuts, but we don't pair it with anything, okay? Right? Do you notice anything about this and anything about this? Is there kind of the same thing? It's like, what's happening right now? Are tax rates going up or down, like if I were to tell you what's happening here, okay? Are tax rates going down or is spending going up? Yes, it doesn't matter what you do. You're essentially just deficit spending. That's what I'm trying to illustrate. Sorry, that was way more convoluted than it should have been. But yeah, Jesus. If you want to do tax cuts or whatever, because you think it's fine for the economy or whatever, okay, sure. But if you're going to do tax cuts and you're not going to pair them with any spending cuts, then anytime the economy starts to accelerate, you can't say, oh, look, the tax cuts, they're working. It's good for the economy. I mean, like, you're just injecting more money into the economy. Of course, the economy's going to increase. Much the same, if Democrats just do stimulus and you inject more money in the economy, it's also going to make the economy grow. Of course, you're just injecting more money, obviously. But you would expect to see these things come out as problems in other areas in the form of things like inflation, which I think is your primary problem, is going to be inflation because you're injecting more money into the economy that's now chasing the same number. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Jesus. Also, that's really simplified. And when I say simplified, I mean it partially because there's more things at play and because I don't fully understand macro econ, so even I wouldn't be able to explain the full picture of it. But in practice, there are going to be some differences, and probably in how tax cuts versus how stimulus would play out in terms of like what sectors of the economy does the money go to and everything. So there's going to be differences, but yeah. But anytime you inject a ton of money into the economy, you're going to see increases in everything, yeah. At Destiny, but cutting taxes doesn't necessarily mean that tax receipts go down. Sure, maybe, yeah. But I mean, much the same, you can probably invert the argument and put it on the opposite side for anything. For instance, stimulus on the government side probably doesn't necessarily mean that tax receipts won't go up, right? Maybe. If you're pumping more money to the economy from the government side, more people are buying goods and services, more employees are working to pay for that, they're earning more money, and they're also paying more tax, right? So again, it's like on both sides, like you can invert basically any argument, yeah. Are you worried about the petrodollar going away? Is it? Why is deflation considered bad usually? I'll give you the 20% conviction answer, but I can already think of challenges to it, and I don't know if it's the actual answer. I think I'm giving you the Econ 101 answer, and I don't even know if this is a good understanding of it. But let's say theoretically, okay, let's say that you could invest in one company over here that will give you a 5% return on your money. Let's say that you can invest in another company over here, a bit riskier, that'll give you a 7% return on your money. And then let's say you can invest in another company over here, a bit riskier, but it'll give you a 10% return on your money. However, let's say that you are sitting in an economy. We'll say this is like low risk, medium risk, high risk, okay? And then let's say that you've got money that's sitting in a bank account, and let's say that inflation on that money is we'll say that it's 4%. Okay, we'll say you're in an economy, and let's say the government tries to do this all the time, and they do 4% inflation. Okay, well, if that's the case, well, your money's sitting in the bank account, inflation is 4%. Well, what are you doing? Well, we look around. Well, as my money sits in the bank, my money's losing value. This isn't good. I can't just hoard money in a bank account. I have to move it somewhere in the economy so that I can get a return on my money. This is not working right now. So inflation encourages higher velocity of money, meaning that money needs to flow through and move through and do things, because the value of your money is always going to be better if it's invested in some project rather than sitting in a bank account because it's losing value over time. Depending on the amount of deflation that an economy might experience, if you run into a world where your money in your bank account is not only not inflating, but it's deflating, it's basically appreciating in value over time, then what'll happen is people are going to look at other investments at any level of risk and they'll be like, well, why would I do this? If I just leave my money in my bank account, it's actually growing in value. $1 million today is worth what, I needed $2 million a year ago to have the same value. My money is appreciating so much by just sitting there. So deflation is bad because I think that, deflation is bad because it discourages investment, and economies only work when money is flowing through to tons of different sectors and people are investing their money, I believe. What is stagflation? I think stagflation is where you run into an issue where you're experiencing a lot of inflation, which generally implies, inflation generally implies a lot of activity is happening in the economy, but stagnation implies that not as much is happening. So stagflation, I think, is when your economy is stagnating, but you're also experiencing high rates of inflation simultaneously. And if these two things shouldn't be happening, and I think the issue is that for the Federal Reserve, I think that the Federal Reserve is so part of a stagnating economy is going to be high unemployment. Okay, I think the Federal Reserve has two jobs. Basically, the Federal Reserve is trying to look at unemployment and inflation. I believe those are the two things that the Federal Reserve looks at. So I'm going wrong. I think it's unemployment and it's inflation. So in stagflation, in a stagnating economy, I think generally your unemployment is high and your inflation should be very low to non-existent. So the Federal Reserve will stimulate the economy through new things like quantitative easing or whatever. And what'll happen is as you increase the supply of money and you move more money through the economy and you make it cheaper to borrow, what'll happen is your inflation might increase a bit because now you're pumping more money in the economy, but hopefully the stagnation comes down, more people get hired, and your unemployment drops. And in a case where right now where the economy is running pretty hot, your unemployment is very low and your inflation is very high as it was. Well, now the Federal Reserve, I think they generally want to pump the brakes, increase interest rates to slow down the flow of money through the economy and decrease the monetary supply generally. So you're bringing the inflation down and the unemployment can rise a little bit is okay. The issue with stagflation, I think, is your unemployment is high and your inflation is high, and the Federal Reserve doesn't really have any tools to deal with that. Because if your inflation is high and your unemployment is high, well, if you start printing more money, maybe you can bring down unemployment, but now your inflation is going to get out of fucking control. Okay, well, fuck. Okay, well, we need to tighten the money supply because the inflation is high, but if you bring your inflation down a little bit, you might be skyrocketing your unemployment. So I think stagflation is difficult to deal with on the fiscal policy side because usually you're balancing these things with any particular tool, and when both of them are moving in one direction, you end up in a really strange world where your traditional tools aren't working anymore. Ugh. Do you think BRICS is a threat to middle-class Americans? BRICS exists in acronym only. I've never heard or seen anything seriously about BRICS, but The main example is California losing billions in their last budget and saying, oopsies, I don't know where that went. I don't know what that's supposed to be an example of. I think, didn't California a couple years ago just have a huge budget surplus? I thought they had to like cut checks back or something. I don't remember. Careful when you talk about state and city budgets. These things are a lot different than your federal budget because the federal government can print money. The federal government has the power to issue new currency and to sell debt in order to raise funds. Now, I believe states and cities can sell debt. I think they can sell bonds. The state of Nebraska, the state of California, I think can sell bonds. But generally, I think states are trying to always run a balanced budget because state economies, I think, can get super fucked and they don't have control over their monetary supply because that's controlled by the federal government. So they can't manipulate things like, a state can't manipulate things like interest rates or whatever in order to create a more favorable macroeconomic environment for them to operate in. I may be wrong, but I believe BRICS is aiming to bring back a gold-backed currency for world trade. You are wrong because nobody is ever going to switch back to backing a currency with anything like that because having no control over your currency is the most retarded fuck thing in the world and is only advocated for by libertarians and crypto dipshits who don't understand how central banking works or why there's any value in being able to manipulate the value of a currency up or down. It's actually one of the larger reasons why people get ass mad sometimes about joining the European Union, more specifically the Eurozone, because giving up control of your currency to another body is very scary because you want to be able to manipulate your currency when you're experiencing highs or lows. There's a great advantage to doing so. The only people that advocate for like gold-backed currency or non-fiat currency just usually don't understand anything about macroecon. But also, I have very little understanding of macroecon, so link me an article now that says, BRICS aiming to do gold standard, economists everywhere support it. And maybe I'm fucking wrong, I don't know. Don't they do so by raising taxes and keeping the funding at like a certain level for states at least? States can raise taxes, but one, the United States probably has quite a bit of wiggle room on raising taxes because leaving the US that's a big deal. States probably have a lot less wiggle room because moving to another state is incredibly easy. We have high levels of fluidity between our states, which is good in the United States. Also, states might be able to raise or lower their taxes, but they can't create any more money. And selling debt for a state is probably a bit more scary than being able to do like the creation of more money, basically, yeah. Have you seen the article from the Telegraph that Ukraine will be told they are too corrupt to join NATO? Sorry for the payroll. Do you think this might hurt Ukraine even more to get help from the US? I mean, they're not joining NATO anyway. That was just, right now, everything is way too much of a clusterfuck for that to happen. How do you convince voters that Biden is better for the economy than Trump if their money went up under Trump and prices went up under Biden? The reality is, I don't think the average person even has a good handle on what the economy looks like. People just know their particular sectors. And also, I don't know how much influence the president has over the entirety of the economy. You can do things like tax increases or tax raises. Technically, that's a congressional act. But I mean, like the president will champion it or cheerlead it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I mean, there's probably prices of stuff that went up under Trump relating to Chinese tariffs, but I don't know what you would even know the price would look like otherwise, so I'm not sure. The inflation argument relates mostly to consumption, not investment. Investment is always expressed in real terms, so inflation or deflation has no effect on investment decisions. Can you explain that for me? Are you talking about by an economist or by an individual? Because for an individual, I don't believe investment is expressed in real terms, right? Like when I go and I look at the difference in stocks growing or like appreciating or depreciating, that's done in nominal terms, isn't it? Like if I look up NVIDIA stock or AMD stock, that's all nominal, no? And when I make an investment decision, nobody's showing me adjusted for inflation, like real like cost of anything. It's all done, well, it's nominal by definition because it's current, but.
For a third straight month, inflation has been higher than expected.
This was 2 months ago, but okay.
Suggesting that the Federal Reserve will find it difficult to lower interest rates, which could slow down the economy. And that.
Hold on. This is going to be a little bit out there, but who sees it? A little bit. A little bit. William Defoe? A little. A little.
That endangers President Biden's re-election prospects.
Absolutely.
Economists are unsure as to why inflation has persisted. Some of it is surely a persistent hangover from the pandemic, but some of it could well be that a feature of recent economic policy of both the Trump and Biden administrations has been to ask consumers to pay more for goods and services. Both administrations goosed the economy with large pandemic relief packages, which without question added to inflationary pressures. But beyond those bills, which have by now probably worked their way through the system, there is another possible cause. Donald Trump had few tangible achievements in office, but he can credibly point to breaking with decades of bipartisan economic policy on tariffs. Trump raised tariffs on China as well as on many of America's closest allies in the West. While candidate Biden criticized those tariffs, President Biden has kept most in place. In addition, the Biden administration has imposed tight Buy America provisions in large spending bills, such as the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act. All of these policies ask Americans to pay more.
How much, I thought Trump only tariffed a few things from China. Do we have like broad tariffs on China right now? Current existing tariffs, USA. Tariffs would not raise inflation. They would change relative prices. I don't know what you mean by that. Why would they not raise inflation? Tariffs on thousands of products. $80 billion worth of new taxes on Americans by levying tariffs on thousands of products valued at approximately $380 billion. Trade war policies in place currently add up to about $79 billion on tariffs based on trade levels at the time of tariff implementation. Inflation is the change in the price level. You would have to spend more money on those goods, having less to spend on other goods. Isn't that what a tariff is? What do you mean?
To achieve certain political goals. Less dependence on China, greater resilience, subsidizing green energy, boosting domestic manufacturing. Even the IRA, as 3 economists have persuasively shown, is about 5 times.
Our total inputs or imports aren't that much of the economy, so even high tariffs won't be cataclysmic, but he did raise tariffs a lot on Chinese goods. Our total imports aren't that much of the economy. Is that true? What would I even compare this to? Total imports, USA, for 2022 was $4 trillion. So yes, inflation doesn't increase. Inflation is a rise in the prices of all goods because you're spending less on other goods. The overall price level stays the same. Listen, you've been typing a lot of economic stuff in chat, so I'm like, I want to believe you, but I don't believe that those terms you're using are 100% correct. Just because if inflation is causing a rise in the price of all goods, just because you spend less now on other goods doesn't mean the price level is staying the same. So like, for instance, if there's a thing worth $10 here and a thing worth $10 here, and you have $20 and you're buying both and they're both $10, but let's say the price of them increases to $15 each and now you can only buy one, you could be spending less, but the overall price would still increase, no? He's wrong. If you just introduce more money into an economy, there's a demand change, not a supply change. Hence, all prices can rise. Okay. All right.
Times more expensive as a way to cut carbon emissions compared to a simple carbon tax. All of the political goals Biden is promoting might well be worthwhile, but they do come at a cost. And one wonders if the cost will be permanently higher inflation. The tariffs are the most egregious of all these policies. Despite Trump's rhetoric to the contrary, they are a tax on American consumers. U.S. Customs and Border Protection estimates that so far Americans have paid more than $230 billion in these taxes. In addition, tens of billions of dollars have been handed out to farmers to compensate for their loss.
Does GDP factors in government spending as well, right?
in agricultural exports as a consequence of China's retaliatory tariffs. It's hard to find anyone who believes that tariffs have been effective. They have not altered China's policies one iota, and they have cost the American economy in money and lost jobs. According to the Tax Foundation, each year the tariffs cost the U.S. economy nearly 200,000 jobs and 0.25% of its GDP, or roughly $70 billion in annual output. Or to put it another way, enacting a modest set of liberalization policies proposed by the Peterson Institute in 2022 would reduce inflation by about 1.3 percentage points, which works out to almost $800 of savings per American household. The Office of the U.S. Trade Representative promised to review the tariffs to determine whether they have been effective or not. It has been working on this review now for over 2 years with no end in sight, despite apparently having little on its agenda these days since it has abandoned its core business of promoting trade. A senior administration official confessed to me that the reason is that if the USTR admits that the tariffs have failed, it will also have to recommend that they be lifted, which the Biden team does not want to do. There is also a foreign policy cost to this rising protectionism in America. President Biden met with his Japanese counterpart this week in a bid to strengthen the alliance between America and one of its longest and closest allies, and yet his administration has announced its staunch opposition to a Japanese company buying U.S. steel, a company that has been foundering for years and is a shadow of the behemoth it once was. Nippon Steel, the Japanese company, promises to invest in U.S. steel, honor its labor contracts, and retain all its workers into 2026. In short, it would rescue an underperforming American company. But for the Biden administration, it seems the optics are more important than the substance. The conventional wisdom of the last several years has been that America hollowed out its manufacturing by embracing globalization and efficiency, which in turn led to the rise of right-wing populism. That argument doesn't stand scrutiny since countries like Germany and France, which protected workers and invested massively in retraining, have also seen right-wing populism boom. Declines in manufacturing are part of the economic rise of countries. Notice that even China, which has prized its factories above all else, has seen manufacturing decline as a share of its economy from 32% in 2011 down to 28% in 2022. People around the world, especially in America, have gotten used to the dramatic declines in cost that globalization has brought them over the past 3 decades. The cost of clothes, appliances, telecommunications, and air travel have all plummeted in that period.
Okay, everything this guy is saying is big true that a lot of people don't take into account. Big true. This is stuff I've argued in the past against protectionist fuckers. The only thing I don't know is if it's true or not is the magnitude of the effects that he's talking about. Like, it could be that what he's saying is true, but in actuality, the effect on prices is incredibly low. But I don't have the macro econ understanding on that.
It's been easy to pocket these gains and complain about the ills of trade. But inflation hits everyone, not just the small percentage of unemployed. And when people are forced to bear the costs of higher prices, they tend to lash out at those in power. What an irony it would be if policies designed to keep populists at bay end up punishing mainstream politicians instead.
Basically, the issue is that people always want to say, like, buy American and stop being globalized and don't export our jobs and blah, blah, blah. People will complain about that. But the reality is all of us are benefiting when that's happening. We all benefit by lower prices for goods and services that we buy, and then the ability to buy other things because now we're spending less on things. That's an advantage that every American has gained. But the problem is people will look at, like, the hollowing out of some of our manufacturing areas. They'll look at Detroit and they'll go, oh, but look at how bad this is. Look at the jobs we're losing. So then they push for, like, okay, well, let's tariff everybody else. Let's do buy America. Let's do all that shit. But then when they do that, and then prices are rising, now people are like, wait, this is bullshit. What about all this inflation? What about all these extra costs that we're having to bear? And it's like, okay, well, if you want to buy America, it's going to cost more. What do you think that means, right? I just don't know how big the effect would be overall on the economy. And I don't have the understanding of that, but you don't benefit from lower prices if you have no job. Yeah, but not everybody loses their job, my dude. Unemployment in the United States is pretty low. It has been fairly low.